A very good afternoon to each and every one of you. It's time for the marketplace. Coming up in this hour, the Bank of Ghana prepares for enhanced regulation for resilient digital platforms for the financial sector. There is more from the Ghana Economic Forum. Also, how relevant are government policies to private sector businesses? We will explore the Business Pulse Index by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And Ghana to profit $298 million from coconuts by 2029. I'll share with you the national export strategy and more reports coming up shortly after this break. Hello and welcome. Now, the primary focus of the Bank of Ghana moving into next year will be to close in on the financial services fraudsters on the various digital channels. Now, this was disclosed by the head of research at the Bank of Ghana, Philip Otu, at the ongoing economic forum. According to him, the central bank has taken note of the rising fraud cases across various banks and digital channels in the country and is therefore advancing regulations for the sector. He believes that this will enhance resilience in the financial sector post-COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has also hinted that the country is well positioned to be the regional economic hub for the Continental Free Trade Agreement area prior to the implementation of the Free Trade Agreement next year. According to him, despite the impact of COVID-19, government has made progress in supporting the economy against the shocks and projected income revenues in this particular instance. We shall be giving you updates on the just ended Ghana Economic Forum in our subsequent bulletins. But still on issues regarding the economy, remittances to Ghana will shrink by almost $200 million to $3 billion this year. This is a disclosure from the World Bank's Migration and Development Report. Charles Nixon-Yeboah has more in this report.
The nation will, however, remain second behind Nigeria as the leading destination of remittance inflows to sub-Saharan Africa. The Bretton Woods institution is attributing the fall in remittances to the COVID-19 pandemic, restrictions in movement, and their devastating impact on the global economy. This declining trend is expected to continue next year when remittances are projected to decrease by about 5.8% to $41 billion in sub-Saharan Africa. The country recorded $3.2 billion of remittance inflows last year. This came mainly from the United States of America and Europe, which have been heavily devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Bank said Ghana and sub-Saharan African migrants are excessively affected in host countries as many are in precarious working conditions and informal jobs. This comes with high vulnerability to contagion and loss of employment. In addition, these migrants are often excluded from social protection systems, healthcare, and government stimulus measures. Remittances contribute significantly to the nation's current account as it provides both foreign exchange and additional savings for the economy.
Well, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has come up with a Business Pulse Index that measures the relevance of government policies to the private sector. To help us dissect this particular Pulse Index is the head of research in the person of Julius Lamte, who joins us via Zoom. Many thanks for joining us on the program, Julius. So first of all, help us understand the remits of this particular report.
So thank you very much. So what we have found out as a chamber is that our SMEs are largely growth-driven with appreciable improvement in their historical sales, their 1 year EBITDA, 12 months earnings, and also 3-year forecast on their company's return. So what we are finding is that SMEs in Ghana are largely growth-driven. What we also found out was that about 2 out of 3 enterprises' growth is also dynamic. What this means is that in the event that there are shocks in the system, there are shocks in the economic cycles or in the industry, these SMEs, 44% of them may have their growth affected. So what we are saying is that largely businesses or our enterprises are growth driven, but then they are less stable And this calls for concern. This calls for we putting up structures in place or policies to support our SMEs to grow. Now, we also found out that if you should check the value index, we also noticed that businesses that are mainly big, as in terms of the corporate or the large enterprises, they are more value-driven. And if you talk about the value-driven, we are looking at their total asset base, and then we're also looking at their the company turnover. We found out that about 2 out of 3 enterprises, this value is less stable. So meaning that our enterprises in the country, they don't have a strong asset base.
Okay,
what
so
we also found
sorry to cut you there, Julius. So this particular research that you conducted, was it during the scope of COVID-19 or pre-COVID-19? And if indeed it was during COVID-19, how do you measure the impact of government stimulus packages so far?
So, yeah, thank you very much, Charles, for your question. So what we did is that this study was done, this is taking into account the data, this company financials from the year 2013 up to 2019. So we mobilized the data, and what we have found is that data will give you an indication as to which areas or which industries are resilient, which industries are also growth driven, which industries are dynamic. So from the data that we have found, we can tell on authority or based on the empirical data that this manufacturing, wholesaling, this retailing, construction, then also professional services and the education industry, these are the most stable industries in the country. So whether COVID or no COVID, these industries will survive the test of time. What the data has also shown us that there are other industries that are less stable, and these are the industries that we need to focus attention to help them survive, particularly in this COVID situation.
Interesting. So how does this inform the business community moving forward? We do know that you've been engaging government on some of the existing challenges that most SMEs are faced with, even large businesses. But how does this inform the business community moving forward in an era of coronavirus?
So thank you very much. So I think from the data that we have seen, one key policy, this recommendation is that SMEs should be furnished with more proactive policy environments, and this should also be encouraged to reinvest with cheaper capital for faster growth and expansion. Because one thing we found is that even though SMEs are growing, they are not able to reinvest in their businesses. So once we are in this pandemic, it calls for concern that these SMEs should reinvest in their businesses with cheaper and then also faster capital. We also have to adopt the strategy whereby we seal off any operational leakages, and then also try to mitigate this risk exposures. We are also asking that there should be an easier access to finance so that our SMEs can be able to withstand the shocks. We are also working with government and then all local and other international partners to ensure that the growth potential of our SMEs are nurtured and also transition into value-driven ones. Because once an SME is able to grow and become a state where they are value-driven, they'll be able to withstand the shocks of time. And what we have also found in the data is that enterprises or businesses that are value-driven, they tend to be more sustainable, and then they also tend to be more stable. So there's hope for Ghana in the sense that our SMEs are largely this growth driven. We don't have to stop there, but we have to move them into more value driven, move again further to more sustainability and further to more stability.
Julius Lamte, we're so grateful that you joined us. He's the head of research at the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce, detailing to us the business pulse, which indicates that over 40% of SMEs in Ghana currently are unstable. should they be hit by a second wave of COVID-19, what this means is that they are going to be going down. We shall be keeping a close eye on the details of this particular report to give you, reports in our subsequent bulletins. But Money Lab is up next, and we take a look at a financial literacy tip on emergency funds.
On today's edition of Money Lab, we would like to take a microscopic look at emergency accounts. An emergency account is any account that has the ability to take care of any urgent situation that will require financial resolution. Advisedly, an emergency account should be able to take at least 6 months of your regular monthly income, so that in case there's an emergency, good or bad, you'll be able to fall on this account to take care of your most urgent needs without having to fall on loans or even to borrow from family and friends. So it's important to have an emergency account that is not equal to your regular expense account, so that you are able to take care of urgent needs in order not to just clear all your lifetime savings or investments. So get an emergency account as soon as possible. In case you are still unsure about what to do to get an emergency account, join us tomorrow on Money Lab and we'll walk you through how to create an emergency account.
And don't miss out on the Money Lab tomorrow as well on some important money tips. Now, President Akufo-Addo says the government will sanction airlines that fail to enforce stringent 72-hour COVID-19 tests for all passengers. According to the president, this is part of additional measures to deal with the surge of COVID-19 cases. Here's an excerpt of his delivery yesterday to the nation.
With the imposition of stringent testing measures at the airport, we have so far been able to detect 172 positive cases among some 54,000 arriving international passengers. The airport authorities will continue to demand that passengers arriving in the country should be in possession of a 72-hour-old negative PCR test, and we will continue to sanction airlines that flout this directive. The health authorities will intensify the follow-up process of arriving passengers, even when they have tested negative, to help ensure we have ruled out any possible infection that may have occurred during the period of embarkation and disembarkation.
Well, away from that, two transport unions, the National Cargo and Haulage Transport Unions in the northern region, are kicking against what they term to be specific cases of extortion mounted by the police from Kumasi to Tamale. According to the transporters, there are about 53 checkpoints between Kumasi and Tamale alone. They have appealed to the Inspector General of Police to intervene. Here is Martina Bugri's report.
The owners, drivers and driver mates, as well as their loading boys, halted work for over an hour in a silent protest. Then they briefed the press on challenges they go through on the highway. Mohammed Hafiz, who read the speech on behalf of the regional chairman of the two unions, raised concerns of alleged extortions, harassment, and arbitrary arrest.
The Motor Traffic and Transport Department, this is a concern and an issue directed to them. At the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is on record that the Inspector General of Police issued a directive that all roads that was blocked should be removed with immediate effect. The National Cargo Transport Drivers Union and Haulage Drivers Union Association, we are not opposed to the roadblocks by the police per se. It is meant to check certain crimes by errant drivers and other road users. However, the police are most at times overzealous in performing their duties. They harass and intimidate our drivers, especially the cargo drivers. Our drivers are sometimes handcuffed like common criminals for just minor offenses and sometimes not even a trump-up charge. There are as many as 53 roadblocks between Ashanti region and the northern region. our drivers are harassed and intimidated at each of the roadblocks. But from Kumasi to Accra, our drivers does not face such challenges. Mr. Inspector General of Police, we cannot remember you giving contrary directives regarding the removal of the roadblocks. The roadblocks are back and they are more intimidating than before. Our union want to know from the high office of the chief of the country why roadblocks are still mounted despite your directive for their removal.
He also raised concerns about axle weighing charges on foodstuff and overcharging without measuring of load by the Ghana Highway Authority.
I mean, the weighing of vehicles is another concern we are putting across today. We understand and appreciate the wisdom behind the introduction of the axle weighing of vehicles. That is to maintain and increase the lifespan of our major highway roads, which are being overstretched by heavy-duty and long cargo-carrying vehicles. We are worried and hereby express our displeasure at the way and manner in which our drivers are treated by the operators or managers of this system. It is a well-known fact that vehicles carrying foodstuffs like rice, maize, millet, beans are exempted from paying fees whenever they get to the weighing point. We are happy that our drivers who at one time or the other happen to be carrying such items are made to go through the weighing system and made to pay. This is another point that emphasis needs to be taken on. The other unpleasant and humiliating treatment our drivers receive are fines and charges we are made to pay without giving them opportunity to view the way of the cargo they are carrying.
You're still watching The Marketplace. We're taking a short break. When we come, we revisit the Ghana Economic Forum, which ended just a while ago. Do stay. Welcome back. Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has hinted that the country is well positioned to be the regional economic hub for the continent prior to the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. He took his turn at the just ended Ghana Economic Forum.
And for us as a country, if we look at sort of the cataclysmic effect that we've seen in other countries on the continent, clearly Ghana has held its own. I think the president was very clear in terms of moving very swiftly and boldly when the pandemic hit our shores, and we were able to mobilize, somewhere near 18 or so billion to make sure that things were put on an even keel and the lives and livelihoods were not jeopardized. Then, we launched the Ghana Cares Over Tampa program so that we immediately get on the path of recovery. But as you see from the composite index, even though we had projected a 0.9% growth from 6.8, now we are quite sure that we'll be able to do about 2%. That is double what we started. Inflation is being kept, our reserves in a strong position. So we're really feeling good about a much faster recovery than we otherwise thought.
Moving on from economics to cash crops, because coconut industry is fast growing with over 300,000 metric tons of the fruit produced annually. So far, the production level for coconut is less than 1% of the global production rate. Now, this has necessitated the National Exports Development Strategy to intervene. Now, the NET initiative, which forms part of government's post-COVID-19 economic recovery program, is to expand existing and establish new certified coconut seedlings, nurseries of high yield and disease-resistant varieties, and also increase availability of other plant inputs. A strategy document available to Joy Business further explains that the coconut subsector is to benefit from an increased investment into expansion and the reactivation of coconut oil mills and refineries, as well as the establishment of new ones at medium to large scale level. Now, what this means is that the projected export revenues for coconut products will spike from $5 million by the end of 2020 to $298 million closing 2029. Let's now bring you some illustrations on your screen there. Of course, as I've been stating, the projected revenues from coconut is going to be spiking over 100%. You can see on your screens there from 2020 this year, we're expecting a 5 million jump to 2029 being 298. But while we're at it, what are the existing threats to Ghana's coconut industry? Of course, as you can see on your screens once again, the existing threats are that farmers are cutting their trees to replace them with rubber. Considering the large demand for rubber and its, income potential, most of these farmers say coconut isn't really bringing them money, so they rather revert to that. Also, the lack of adequate long-term credit for plantation development, especially when most bankers are saying the agri sector is much risky an investment venture. And the third one is the lack of adequate processing skills and knowledge on quality requirements. You take a closer look at the various coconut farmers across the country, and one thing they lack is that of adequate processing skills. The fourth, being the last existing threat, is a low level of value addition. We keep buying coconuts at the various centers without necessarily thinking about its processing refinery potential. That's how we end this edition of The Marketplace. My name is Charles Aitik. Do have a good afternoon.